Welcome to Rauta Underground Trio. Once again, we have three different bands from three different parts of the world, but not so much different styles. Well, kinda that too. So once again, I'm gonna first introduce the bands in question in alphabetical order, and then I will switch back to the order from worst to best according to my own opinion. And obviously, you will decide what's your order once you gather a little bit of listen of these bands or these particular releases, or here, links are included in the description box for your listening pleasure. Now let's go, and first we'll head to international waters. This time it's pretty interesting. This is first of all an album I've already gotten to review a couple of years ago, but here it is in two different versions from two different labels. Before I started doing this, I didn't even remember I had this reviewed this particular CD from one particular label. So here it has another go. So in a way, it doesn't make much of a sense, but then again, music never gets old, and I guess the least I can do for Morbid Stench and their given respective labels is that I go yet through this particular release for another go here. It shall start because, in fact, this old school death metal project from a couple of different countries from Latin America is old school death metal done basically the right way. I say basically because it's more about theoretically this gonna hit the ovens hard, meaning yes, in the very basic principles, this is how you wanna do old school death metal. You wanna make it sound like it's heavy, it's dark, it's not exactly very brutal, but it's death metal, the way it was kind of meant to be back in the days. So as you can see, these are quite similar in terms of the layout and everything, but obviously only the cover is exactly the same, and even that is different when you take a look at these layout details, like how the logos are put on the cover, and there's a little bit difference between the paper quality as well. These are not something that you outright see it, but once you feel it, there's the difference. Now obviously the music is still the same, and like I said, this is from Latin America, and technically speaking this is a side project of a couple of different bands which are a lot older than this one. This is the debut album in Doom and Putrefaction, and like I said, this goes the old school ways. In so many ways, this is just how you do it right. Like I said, you have the production, you have the riffs and everything like that. So all that good so far, even with the kind of a basic growly vocals. But when you go for the details, when you go for the catchiness, the memorability, the way to how this is going to stand out from the rest, then you kind of realize there is nothing outstanding. Don't get me wrong, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's more like having a lager beer, which you just want to, quench your thirst and everything. But if you're looking for something to just like, wow, this is going to make waves, this is going to stick out, and this is going to be something fundamentally different, then you're in a wrong garden. I'm saying this because for those who are just looking, old school death metal treatment, you're getting it done right. But then again, giving it a couple of spins later, you'll figure out why I would be listening to this one rather than some legendary acts from the early days of death metal. So, in a way, interesting, but then again also, why would you really go for that? Alright, let's not get negative, Joe. Let's travel to Australia with a band called Tyrannic. This is not exactly the first album by the given band. They have been out there for quite some time, but not exactly an old one. However, already few releases under their blackened belt of metal music. This is something that is labeled on Metal Archive site as Black Doom Metal. Tyrannic things are happening here, and basically I would say yes, you are partially right with the given description. As you can see, by the way, there are no lyrics, so very simplistic, almost Xerox copied old school metal, extreme metal vibe to it. So as I was saying, this is basically indeed combining things from doom metal and black metal. But that is a little bit misleading. First of all, this isn't outright that slow as what you might be thinking of doom metal, and knowing quite a few doom metal purists, they won't even consider calling it doom once it's outside the box of traditional doom, meaning even to those of heavy metal leaning, So honestly, it's like epic doom or just traditional doom in the veins of Black Sabbath and the likes. You're gonna get your fingers slapped all over if you try to call this one doom just because it's a little bit slow here and there. And first of all, it's not even slow that much all the way through. So it's more like black metal slowing down a bit. Does that really count as black doom? I don't think so. Mostly this reminds me of Dark Throne around the golden era, you know, the kind of Under Funeral Moons and Transylvanian Hunger, Spencerfoes and all that stuff, but a little bit further. And by a little bit further, I mean this is sometimes sounding like if Aura Noir, this legendary black thrash act from Norway, decided to slow down a little bit. How do you slow down a thrash? How do you slow down it so it still sounds like black thrash? Well, this is where you get your answer from. These guys do have some groovy black metal riffs, and with grooviness I really mean that kind of a thrash metal influence, but having this, well, doomy pacing. So as a result, it's almost like a Dark Throne and Aura Noir made a baby, decided to slow it down and then get it out. The vocals really remind me quite a bit of Nocturnal Cult's raw style. They are really, really good. Not Nocturnal Cult good, but still very good. And when it comes to the production, the rest of the stuff, well, these could really enjoy a little bit more punch. Sometimes it sounds like, yeah, you really decided to do a rehearsal room recording. Not that it's a bad idea, but it is when you don't really have that kind of a necro punch to it. So instead of your ghoul slapping on your balls and zombies tearing out your heart and all, this is more like giving you a little bit of teeth on your arm and then you slap it away. My point here is this really, really could have enjoyed a more stronger punch. It really could be this really cannibalistic thing which you want to, run away from, but you can't because you're weak and all. So my point here is quite nice, but no cigar. I like what these guys are doing, but in my opinion, they do better execution. So next time, give them a fire axe instead of this dumb, baseball bat, and then some corpses will take place. Interesting release, however. And then finally, we go to Switzerland with a band called Peer. This is a solo side project by Mr. Bonehead, who is known for a lot of different bands coming from Switzerland. I guess mostly known to me by his real band, Borkne. I mean, it's kind of unfair to call these other projects not real bands, but you get the idea. You can only have one main project and the rest are side projects. No matter what crazy artists say, you really can't have multiple times 100%. You have just percentage and then you divide it into different portions. Now, this is black metal. Somewhat very, very traditional, somewhat melodic, somewhat a little bit rawish. Doesn't sound like a weird deal of cocktail. Not really. It sounds like something that totally happened in the 90s, and this is basically a continuation to that. Now, this band has already, or project has quite a few releases out. And technically speaking, with this kind of activity, this really could be some kind of a main band if you really think about it. However, this is a little bit missing out something. And by that I mean maybe with more focus, with more like a real band, this could be really top A quality. Every ingredient is right there. I mean, I kind of like the somewhat grimy production and, the vocals and drums riffs. But if there is one thing is missing is the memorability. Once again, it doesn't really stick or stand out. Because the thing here is, there's a lot of like those good filler riffs, the background riffs, the bridge parts where it's just like, yes, I love these. But what is when the magic happens? You're like, I don't know, man. And that's what it's missing. It's missing the actual lawmaking. It's more about great foreplay and nice pillow talk after that. But the actual consensual making love and making great black metal with that, yeah, you're kind of going to the right direction. However, that being said, it's still best of the pile because it really has the ingredients and pushing the right buttons pretty much. Not necessarily in the right order, but you get the idea. And like I said, you have all the links necessary for your listening experience in the description box. You start listening, you start figuring out which ones are your cup of tea, if any. Don't say that you weren't warned, because I did exactly that. With some silly, stupid humor. So if you didn't like this, that's the better way to go. No, off you go. Seriously, fuck off and start listening. Bye-bye.